Yesterday, when I posted about misogyny being a sociological issue and requiring social consequences to effectively address that attitude and behavior among.
I will put their on the screen and in the comments in case you guys want to go watch the full video. I just screen recorded it because their stitches were not on, but I wanted to add onto it because they talk about how misogyny can't be fully healed or worked through with just individual therapy. There has to be sociocultural consequences to misogyny on every level of society. So a good way to visualize this is with the micro, meso, and macro levels of society. So unless this part of the wheel will change and start holding men accountable for different levels of misogyny and sexism, then it's not going to translate all the way to the individual level with individual social relationships and interpersonal relationships. And another way to visualize how we need to hold people accountable for perpetuating the patriarchy is through this pyramid. So in order to do this, we have to work our way up. So we can't hold people accountable for this if we're not holding people accountable for this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And I wanted to touch on how for some men going to therapy can make them worse because they learn how to be more manipulative and weaponize therapy terms and speak. And also on their page, there's a post where they say that the number one reason why men go to therapy, it's not because their wife or their spouse wants to, or other people in their family want to, it's because of their boss. And it's usually because they're an alcoholic. And patriarchy is a barrier that keeps men from going to therapy because feelings and emotions are related to the feminine. And under patriarchy, the feminine and anything that's what a woman would be like or what a woman would do is seen as weak. And so because the stigma about emotions, therapy, feelings being perceived as weak and almost seen as incompetent, this translates into the social circles of these men. And they are afraid that if they don't conform and they were to go to therapy, that they would be ostracized from the social group that they were in. And I'm not saying what I'm saying next as an excuse for their behavior, nor am I saying that for pretty much any part of the video. This is just an explanation. So social rejection is processed in the same part of the brain as physical pain, and that was something that humans evolved to have because if we lived in groups together, we were more likely to survive in the wild. So the social stigma of emotions and vulnerability, plus the way our brain processes social pain, and that men are terrified of being embarrassed and rejected, it's just a combination that it would make sense that men would most likely go to therapy because their boss told them to, because they pride themselves on trying to find maybe purpose and value in their work above anything else, because I would say maybe 98% of them don't do the work to become self-actualized and start a journey of self-mastery, because a lot of them would rather just stay where they are and stay uncomfortable, because it takes work. It takes emotional work, it takes spiritual work to go to therapy and actually work through your shit and work through your trauma. And if most men don't become better people or go to therapy or find some other resource that helps them become a better person, then it keeps the bar low. It keeps the bar in hell for how much men are expected to be empathetic, compassionate, how much they are expected to be involved with parenting and during a mother's pregnancy. Now I learned in my abnormal psych class that for 2 personality disorders, antisocial personality disorder And narcissistic personality disorder, treating these conditions can be very hard because most of the time they don't seek treatment unless it's mandatory or it's in a prison or a jail, and they don't think that they need treatment. And actually going to therapy can lead to higher levels of offending because they learn how to manipulate people better and how to read people better, and are like introduced to psychology basically through that. Now, I'm not saying that most men have narcissistic personality disorder or antisocial personality disorder. Personality disorders are very rare. I'm kind of tired of everyone like calling everyone a narcissist because it's quite rare to have it. But I have noticed narcissistic traits and antisocial traits in men, like having lack of empathy, callousness, and being interpersonally exploitative. And so because there's kind of this like Venn diagram between the behavior of men under the patriarchy and these antisocial and narcissistic traits, it would make sense that it would create a situation where they also feel like there's nothing wrong with what they're doing and they're not experiencing a lot of distress or rejection for their behavior, so they don't see a reason why they should change it. I feel like 2 years ago is when I started seeing men online like using the term like therapy and therapy speak, like gaslighting and boundaries. Like, do you guys remember when Jonah Hill, those like messages came out between him and his, I think, girlfriend at the time, and I forget what like boundary he said that she crossed, but that proved to me that he doesn't know what boundaries are about, because boundaries are about what you are going to do. If you are going to remove yourself from a situation, boundaries are not about telling the other person what to do, because you can't control that. So it doesn't make sense for that to be the boundary. So it's not like there's no hope for men to become self-actualized, but they have to be the ones to decide to do it. They have to be the ones to get themselves out of their loneliness epidemic. They have to be the ones to get themselves out of their sewer slide epidemic. And so they're either going to have to evolve emotionally, spiritually, mentally, or they will be left behind, because the scale in evolution is balancing out. So if you're dead weight, it's going to drop you out of the scale until it's balanced again.